tell me a story or some artist, because you worked with everybody, who took a little longer to hit, that didn't have that, single off the first record that blew up, that took 3 or 4 albums of grinding. Give me some stories like that.
I'm gonna be honest with you, there's only, out of all the artists I worked with, there's only one story about that. It's Nipsey Hussle.
I'm Tom Ward, and over the last couple years, I've had the chance to sit down with some of the biggest celebrities and influencers in the world. What I've always found most fascinating is the stories of the businesses that they've built behind the scenes. On this show, you'll get an inside look of what it takes to build a successful business from some of the biggest celebrities, business people, and up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the world. This is The Tom Ward Show. Guys, welcome to The Tom Ward Show, where we interview the biggest entrepreneurs in the game, and today we have such an entrepreneur, Steve Lobel, music impresario. He came up with Run DMC, worked with old school artists like Biggie, but kept it going with guys like Sean Kingston and Nipsey Hussle from day one. He's also an entrepreneur and has several businesses inside and outside of the music space. Just a pleasure to be here, man.
The pleasure's mine. I appreciate you staying up, drinking that Mountain Dew. I lived off Mountain Dew and Snicker bars for 10 years, so I can relate.
Bro, I got little kids. This is 10 o'clock at night. This is late for me, bro.
I know, man.
But I'm ready.
We working.
We working. I got to keep up with you. First of all, this is an incredible, guys. You can see this backdrop here. Just the career you've had. And we were talking a little bit before. I made the comment, it's easy to have a number one hit or be a one-hit wonder, which it's not easy. But those people pop up a lot. And not just artists, but just, you could have a good idea and you got one and that's for your lifetime. But for you, to go from coming up with kind of Run DMC and then running the full gamut, keep going, staying current, staying relevant, and then being with a guy with, say, Nipsey from day one, that speaks a lot to kind of maybe the ear you have. And what do you attest that to? Just always staying in touch, or how do you do that?
It's a great question because it's very hard to stay relevant. I say I'm a dinosaur, but I'm fossil fuel because I stay relevant. I also put that towards good karma, doing great business, and working hard. So I've been blessed to just keep going and reinventing myself, and that's because I'm not stuck in my ways and I'm not stubborn, and I'm open-minded, and I take advice and I listen to people that tell me the real. I don't have yes men around me, and I'm blessed.
It's cool. I'm a music nut. I'm a hip hop nerd, and it's kind of cool to sit down with you. I've sat down with artists and stuff before, but kind of from the exec background is different, because now I want to get a sneak peek of like behind the curtain, right? So I grew up on CDs, right? The CD world. We saw some cassettes. I grew up on cassettes around. Kids watching this have no idea what a cassette is. It's a little thing you put in your radio, it plays. So going from the days of when you came up, I dropped $15 for a CD that came out on Friday. I know one song. I'm hoping there's more than one song on it, but it's risky. Who knows? Okay. Now I spend $15. And I got me and the whole family set up on Spotify, and I got every song in the world on my phone, which for a music lover, it's incredible. But explain to me, how did it used to work when an artist got a signing bonus, or, he got an advance and they went in the studio and they recorded and they dropped an album and they toured behind it, versus now, where you just kind of have a single in your head and you just drop it on Spotify? Like, how has the business changed? What does it look like?
Well, it's funny. I just dropped a masterclass with iLart, and people could, go and sign up for a masterclass and learn a lot.
Okay.
But it's a great question because I come from the era of vinyl. Yeah. And we would drive around the country, say, me and Fat Joe, and Big Pun was his artist, and he was breaking Pun at the time. And we would go to, mix show. We'd go to urban radio stations, and we would have to just bum rush in or kick the door in or, maneuver in to give, these DJs the vinyl. And that's how you break a record back then. Because people don't understand that DJs really break the record. Till this day, if I got a hot record, I'm gonna go test it with the DJs. And then we evolved to, remember 8-tracks. And then we go to cassettes, and you saw some of the cassettes in here. It's funny because Jam Master Jay, rest in peace, we did a cassette with 4 pre-rolls. We're in the dispensary, but we did a cassette pre-roll, right? And then from there, you went to CDs. It was funny because, me and my man Mexican Sean, we were driving in a Range Rover Big U had gave us a CD called Slauson Boys. And on that Slauson Boys tape was Nipsey. And then you go and now you evolve. It went to ringtones, it went to iTunes, and now you're in Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Tidal. So you can go stream music. So that's like my dad coming up, who's 89, and comes from, doesn't even know how to text on a phone, right? Or me using rolls of quarters with a beeper or a SkyTel two-way or payphones. No one even knows what a payphone is. So things just evolve. And now we're in the streaming business. So I'm glad you touched on that, because you have to stream billions of streams for an artist to really make money, or a label to make money, or a publisher to make money. If we rewind to CDs, say, and you're buying a CD at $21.99 or $18.99, the distributor's making his money, the artist's making the money, the label's making the money, and you could come and sell 10 million East 99 Eternals like Bone Thugs and just add up the math. You know what I mean? Or you sold a cassette, now was sound scanned at the record store. So the music industry, you made more money back then.
And the other thing that was different too is they would grow with an artist. So I'm a music nut from all eras, right? You go back to the 70s and David Geffen and stuff, what he was doing with kind of the folk rock, the grassroots kind of guy, the David Crosbys and stuff. They would sign an artist and they'd stick with them through 3 bombs. And go, okay, we invested some money, we're making money over here with Led Zeppelin, that's gonna pay for these artists I'm gonna develop, maybe one of them will hit. It doesn't seem like there's time anymore.
Right, another great question, there's no more artist development.
That's what I'm talking about,
So say an artist, I was an A&R, Sony Relativity, where I worked with MOP, the Beatnuts, Common Sense, who everybody knows as Common, Ruthless Records was distributed there, so we had MC Ren and Bone Thugs and Harmony, Eazy-E. We had Mac Mall, we had the Dayton Family, and so on and so forth. But you would sign an artist, right? Say Fat Joe gets signed to Relativity.
Okay.
You would sign him to a 7-album deal. Remember, there's no social media, there's no cheating the game. So the first 2 albums, you're spending a lot of money to try to get this man known. Of course, the budgets back then were a lot more. A recording budget's $1 million.
You gotta pay for studio time.
Studios at that time were $3,000, $4,000 a day. Producers were making a lot more money. A video was $500,000 to $1 million. Your marketing campaign was $5 million. Your album artwork, your photo shoots with so much money. You're spending a lot of money, and there was no ancillary rights where you own the publishing and the touring. Then that came out where it's a 360 deal. So you're getting signed then, and you have to take a VCR tape, which we have on here of Mariah Carey, and you got to go to MTV or BET. Or you have to drive down to DC and go do Rap City, The Basement. So it was so much art development. You have to work radio. You have to just keep pushing a single. Now, fast forward, you put out a record, you service it to DSPs, and it just goes. And it's a different ballgame. So the industry has changed so much, and I've been blessed to watch it evolve and change, and it's good, bad, and ugly right now. I miss those old days of getting in a van with Fat Joe and going to every city and state to go, touch the people, kiss the people, hug the people, shake people's hands. And that's how I built a lot of my relationships, by going around the world and meeting the promoter, meeting the person that's doing retail at the retail store, the radio jock, or the DJ. And those days are gone now, so that's why at the place we're at right now, we do meet and greets with artists with their cannabis, and we usually like the same thing as the record stores.
It's funny, you just mentioned, you got to drop 500 grand for a video or $1 million for a video, you got to pay the producer this. And I was just thinking, a kid with a Mac does all that in his bedroom now, right?
Yeah.
He designs his artwork, right? He produces the song himself. He makes the beats himself. He does all that, which used to cost millions of dollars, that some kid in Ohio watching this right now goes, shit, I did that today.
Right, that's why labels rather let you go do all that and then pay you 10 times what it's worth if you get it going, instead of signing a new artist these days and spending all the money. because artists come and go these days and there's so many artists. That's why I respect artist Russ. Russ does everything himself. He produces himself, he writes himself, he raps himself, he masters himself, engineers himself. So, you know, there's a lot of incredible young artists out there that do it themselves. But to be honest with you, to get to the next level, to wind up getting a Grammy or getting that radio, you really need a major label.
You need a team and a push.
Yeah,
right?
and a lot of people don't understand what team means. It means together everybody achieves more. You know what I mean? So you could do a lot of it independently, but to take it to another level, like I said, to getting on that Grammy stage or getting full-time rotation, you need that major push, and that's a major label.
So there's aspiring artists, you know, not just hip hop artists, but, you know, every influencer now wants to be a singer, and there's just, you know, some kid watching this in their bedroom right now is 20 who kind of wants to make it. How do they cut through the noise anymore? Because just like we talked about, right? Okay, now it's kind of a level playing field. Before you had to know somebody who can get you in the studio, right? Or you'd have to hustle to try to figure a way to get in there. Now anybody can record, right? So you don't have to buy tape anymore. It's digital. You can record until the cows come home, right? How do you cut through all that stuff?
Look, it's a marathon, not a sprint, that Nipsey said, really, to build a career and become a legend or have a legacy. And a lot of people are cheating the game. Everybody's an artist, a producer, a video director, a cameraman. It's hard. Like, I work with 2 young independent artists, Masha, a girl named Masha who's Russian, and another girl named Annie O'Malley, right? And they're very talented, but they want it overnight. You know, we were talking about Mexican Sean earlier. He has a nephew, Little Lou. You know, he opens up, he does shows, he's in the studio. He wants it overnight. These things takes time. Can you have a bullet and go real quick? Yeah, but then what happens? So again, to all the young artists out there, like, yeah, you think you could do it yourself, but I always tell people, just putting out music. Stay putting out music, and let's see what catches, and get one fan after another fan after another fan after another fan, and building that fan base. Because look, I meet people and say, I'm an influencer, I'm a YouTuber, and I got 18 million followers and 6 million followers. I'm like, what does that mean? What's your resume? What's your stripes? And no disrespect to them, but what have you done? What's your work you put in? But they could become more popular and bigger and influential and make more money than an artist that has talent. You know, there's
because they got to build an audience.
And there's the great D'Amelio sisters. Yep. You know, shout out to Mark D'Amelio. I know him a long time. And those girls have Dunkin' Donuts commercials, and they're huge on TikTok, and they sign to major labels, but they're real talent. Then you got a lot of influencers and stuff who are not real talent. So it all depends. And, you know, where I come from, and we were talking about this earlier, is just to stay around and have a legacy and continue to stay relevant. A lot of those people come and go.
Talk about, so give me some inspiration. Give me a feel-good story, because everybody sees, and like you said, those 2 young artists, and look, when you're young, you don't have patience, right?
No patience.
At least for me, I still don't have patience, but I'm getting better.
I have no patience.
I don't like going to Disneyland with my kid because I can't.
Patience is sacrifice equals success.
Yeah, but it takes a while to learn. So of course, that 20-year-old who wants to make it, wanted to make it yesterday, right? Tell me a story or some artist, because you worked with everybody, who took a little longer to hit, that didn't have that, you know, single off the first record that blew up, that took 3 or 4 albums of grinding. Give me some stories like that.
I'm gonna be honest with you, there's only, out of all the artists I worked with, you know, there's only one story about that. It's Nipsey Hussle. You know, he never really put out a major album release. What he was doing was he was making, you know, music and putting it out on CDs and giving it out in the hood. And then obviously when we got involved, shout out my man Big U, Mexican Sean, and All Money In, All Money Out, and took it to another level. And even World Star, shout out to Q, rest in peace, from World Star. We were delivering content, but you have to understand this. He didn't want it overnight. You know, we would argue about, like, yo, we need a radio record. He's like, no, I'm not chasing radio. Let radio come to me or us. And
that takes balls.
It takes very much balls, and he was the smartest artist I ever worked with. And you have to understand something, that his philosophy was, we're gonna take our time, and we're gonna develop this. And he was putting out mixtapes, and then he put out the $100 mixtape. Shout out Big Bob, you know, Brand Engine. And at the end of the day, he was just putting out music when he wanted to. And then he got signed to Atlantic Records. But people don't understand, Nipsey was originally signed to Epic Records. Charlie Charlie Walk signed him based off his name. Didn't even know him. And Epic Records wasn't even in a rap label at the time. So towards the end of his life, no one knew he was going to get murdered, but he was signed to Atlantic Records. And then he put out a major release after 12, 13 years, and it went platinum, and unfortunately, it went platinum because he passed away and everybody wanted to become a Nipsey fan. And then he won a Grammy, and then he's getting a Hollywood Walk of Fame, but why didn't we do this when he was alive? But that's a perfect example of someone who said, I'm not chasing radio, I'm not chasing fans, I'm not chasing a platinum record. Everybody wants a platinum record tomorrow, they want a radio record tomorrow, they want a Grammy tomorrow. And that's just the perfect example in a story of someone that, wanted it the right way. And if he was still alive, sky was the limit.
So now you're doing all that. It takes balls, it takes patience, but it also, there's got to be a revenue stream coming in as you're figuring all that stuff out too. Talk about side hustles and your thoughts on that, where every kid wants to quit their job at 18 or stop school and I'm all in, which is one way to go. There's no turning back. You burn the bridge behind you so you can't go back. You got to make this thing work. That is one way, and it's been successful for a lot of artists. But there's another way. I remember we were talking before about Rick Rubin, right? One of my favorite stories ever is Chuck D, Public Enemy, one of the greats.
One of the
Chuck
best.
D was a college graduate. If you don't know who Chuck D is,
And you don't know Flavor, Public Enemy, hip-hop don't know you.
Yeah.
Go hide under a pillow.
But Chuck D was a college graduate who had a real job, and Rick Rubin was so blown away by him, he called him every single day at work for months asking him to sign. But Chuck had a job. He was doing things on his own terms. I got a check coming in. I don't need to see, who's this Rick Rubin? We'll see if he's gonna be there in a little bit. For artists coming up, that gives you some power to have that check coming in as you figure the other stuff out. What do you think about that? Is that good advice for them to do?
That's a big problem with artists because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
What do you mean?
Meaning that, all that glitters is not gold. Like, say you get signed to a record label and you get an advance. The advance goes quick, and then how do you live, right? And that's a lot of things with a lot of artists. They struggle to stay in their needs, right? Because most people live out of their needs. So, I come up shoveling snow, raking leaves, delivering newspapers, bussing tables, waiting tables. So, you have to learn, or you have to understand how to balance your money and how to budget your money, and don't try to keep up with everybody. Now, if you drop everything and you want to give your music career your full-time thing, you have to. But sometimes you don't make it, or sometimes you can't afford to pay the bills, so you're trying to juggle, I'm a waiter, I'm a waitress, but I'm a singer. Hey, I'm a rapper, but I got a job. Yep. But a lot of people's ego get in the way and they get scared and they say, oh, I have to just drop my job. So it's a roll of the dice. And Nipsey believes in himself. So he understood he's a real entrepreneur and a real hustler. But most of these people are not business people. They're not hustlers. So they get themselves.
You can't teach that.
Yeah, you can't teach that. It has to be in you. And you get caught up. A lot of people think that every rapper is a businessman. They're really not. That's why they have a business team. But you got to understand that you might have to have a regular job until you really make money. And these days in the music industry, the only way you make money is if you really, selling a lot of merch, touring a lot, making tour money, streaming, you have to stream a lot to make some money, unless you're independent, and then, publishing. Or you're doing a publishing deal and getting an advance. And you're living off that for a certain amount of years and having a good business manager and putting money away for taxes and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of struggling artists out here that people think they're doing great, but they're struggling. Yep. So again, it's a gift and a curse.
And it's funny, you say that, and LA is a perfect town for this, right? It's a lot of smoke and mirrors out here, right? So you see him on Instagram and you go, they got 100,000 followers and look at that video they just shot, but you don't know, he didn't pay his electric bill this month.
Yeah, look, let's talk about the COVID. So many artists depended on touring, and there was no touring. And a lot of artists live month to month, so they were fucked up. And then they had to catch up once the virus supposedly disappeared and they started doing shows, they're behind. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and a lot of artists, 90% of them, depended on club performances or walkthroughs or festivals or concerts or shows, and it wasn't there, and a lot of people don't save for those rainy days. I told a lot of artists that I know and work with, you need to pray that a lot of these independent promoters are still in business that are 2,000-seater venues and 3,000-seater venues, because every artist doesn't do a festival. Every artist doesn't do a Rolling Loud or a Coachella. You get it? Yeah. So a lot of those promoters are out of business. A lot of those venues are out of business now. So all you artists out there, save for the rainy days. Don't live out of your means. Don't impress people.
So what do we got here, man? This place is pretty, we got studios, we got a weed store. What is this?
Yeah, so we created here something very unique, where we created a dispensary, a cultivation, hip-hop museum, and a recording studio. It's never been done before. We opened a treatment center, me and Scott Storch, and my other partner Frank Sid in Studio City, called the Heavenly Center, abbreviation for THC, where, you know, we have a 42-bed facility, and we help people. We have sober studios in there, and we use cannabis to help people with drug addiction, alcohol addiction. So that's another business that I did. But where we're at right now, we're in Van Nuys, California, at Lemonade by Weed Working.
Okay.
And Lemonade Weed Working is something that I did very unique, where, you know, we have other dispensaries like Cookies dispensaries and Dr. Green Thumb, but we want to do something special here. And it was my idea. You know, I like to be innovative and creative and think out the box, like, you know, a treatment center using cannabis, right? Who does that? Who opens a hip-hop museum, recording studio, dispensary, and a grow, right? So we did it, and we've been open about 2 years. We'd have everybody here from OGZ to Crazy Bone, to Conway, to Benny the Butcher, to P-Rod, to Jada Kiss, to Antonio Brown, to Little Keed, rest in peace. We've had everybody come through here.
How's business?
Business is amazing. We have a great menu here. A lot of people come to see the paraphernalia and all the historical things in the museum. A lot of it's from my career, for being in the music industry for 35 years. And a lot of people are dropping things off. Tony Ayo just dropped something off. Edie from The Outlaws just dropped something off. DJ Paul from 3 6 Mafia dropped something off. So we have a lot of great things in there. And then we have a recording studio where Lazy Bone has touched the mic, Benny the Butcher has touched the mic. So we just try to do different things here. Because back in the days, you know, we would do, you know, go to record stores and have artists show up there, and now we bring artists to the dispensary. That's Conway. Yeah. Conway the Machine is one of the hottest artists. That's Crazy Bone. Yeah. So we bring them here and we do a drop and a meet and greet, and people come and they look for autographs, but they have to buy the cannabis. And
could you ever imagine, like, rewind 30 years, could you imagine an artist when you were coming up, say with Run DMC or these guys, right, that they would do their own weed drops? It's so wild.
I never thought of it because, you know, where I come from, you go to jail for a nickel bag, a dime bag, an ounce of weed, smoking in the street, and now cannabis is recreational legal in a lot of states. You know, it's funny because in the late 90s, 95, 94, Crazy Bone would buy an ounce of weed, go to the studio, smoke weed. We just got to the studio at 12 o'clock, we're spending $3,000 for the studio. He's smoking an ounce of weed and he goes to sleep. I'm like, what are you doing? We just got to the studio. But then he would wake up and he'd make hit records. Yeah. So I looked at cannabis back then because there wasn't a lot of strains. Now you got, look at the menu here. Like, there's so many strains, there's so many products, there's so many exotics and OGs. So
what are the popular strains now? Like,
there's so many popular strains. You know, we do
you guys.
We do the rapper Dave East strain called East Cold. We do YG's 400 strain. We have a brand called Sprinkles. I have a brand called Takeout, which is a Chinese takeout. You know, we have Kushco. We have a lot of our own strains, and we have the cookie strains, the lemonade strain, and then there's just so many different other products. We have a Cali Clean from the Heavenly Center, a strain called Metaverse, one called Literally, one called Loyalty.
I like Metaverse, man, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool, it sells good and it's good quality. This is being grown called Takeout.
What does that mean?
The strain name is Takeout.
Okay.
And I just wanted to create.
So all this is the same strain?
Yes, a package, and this is not even a lot. This would package up, a couple of pounds, but I made a takeout bag looking like a Chinese takeout.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And we're growing that, so come on in.
Jesus Christ. Fucking insane. Beautiful. So do you have a guy, is there a scientist, is there a weed scientist back here?
There's cultivators, there's trimmers, there's, we have the clones, then it goes to the veg room, which is small, and then they start growing and go into the flower rooms, and then the dry room, and then the trim room, where I call like the New Jack City room, where they're naked, but here they're not naked, and they're trimming the weed and they package it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it? So, okay, you're a new artist, you're coming out, you got talent, right? And it's not just your mom telling you got talent, you got people who actually, believe in you and people who are supporting you and starting to get fans and stuff like that, right? Where should they focus? It sounds like now it's the social media game. Where should they be spending their time? Should they be spending their time on Instagram building it? Should they be on YouTube? Should they be on TikTok? Do they got to be everywhere? What do they do?
Nowadays it's everywhere, right? It's the Wild Wild West. Yeah. I love these two Australian kids. This whole, a few weeks ago, BET weekend, they got a flatbed truck and they driving around performing on it, and the person that works with them is Poon. He used to work with Ludacris and everything, right? But that's guerrilla marketing to me. Everybody to me is doing the same stuff, doing the traditional. Well, let me service it to the DSPs. Let me get on Instagram and do my little TikTok videos. What's going to make you different? What's going to make you think out the box? What's going to make you be innovative? What's going to make you be creative? And if I was an artist, I think I would be very successful because in my business world, I do different things. I'm very creative, from the museum, dispensary, to the treatment center using cannabis. Like artists, be creative, be innovative, do things, think out the box. Don't follow everybody. When everybody's going left, I go right. When everybody's going right, I go left. Be a leader, not a follower, but everybody's just trying to, it's hard to even go out to an event these days. Everybody's a rapper or a singer, man. Hey, let me get your number, let me get you this. I'm like, just DM me, because if I gave her my number, I wouldn't have a life. But what makes you different than the next person? And half these guys or girls look the same.
100%.
There's no innovation.
When you've signed artists, you've been around the business, it's not just all talent. So when you look at somebody and you go, I want to work with this guy, what's the percentage? Is it talent, or is it that X factor, or is it both?
Well,
Will I take less talent for somebody who's just got it?
It's a great question. Again, where I'm at in my stage of life and career, it's loyalty and integrity.
Okay.
Because there's so many people that get amnesia and they're so disloyal when the money comes or the fame comes, and there's no integrity. They'll sell their soul for a check. So that's where I'm at in my stage. Back then it was talent. But besides all that, I'm looking for somebody, and I haven't found that person, because you gotta stick out. It's gotta be work ethic. It's gotta be originality. It's gotta be personality. It's gotta be talent. And it's just gotta be nonstop grind, because a lot of these new people don't wanna work hard. They just wanna press a button and press send or get on Instagram. And you gotta have that work ethic to really go to another level. And I work with some artists, but I haven't found the one that I just think is gonna be the one, but you never know.
What I wanted to focus on is, I don't even know how the hell you pulled this off. You started to get, correct me if I'm wrong, songwriting credit as an A&R guy.
No,
Is that true? How does that happen?
I'm self-made and self-taught. I became a co-executive producer.
So what does that mean?
An executive producer, meaning that, look, again, when I first got in the music industry, I was just doing all types of things. When I got the job at Sony Relativity, I was doing retail promotions. Okay. Then I was doing radio. Then I became an A&R. And then my job is to define beats, get the features, come up with the whole aspect from A to Z. So you would get the credit for co-producer, executive producer, certain things, giving ideas as a songwriter and so on and so forth. I just created a publishing company years ago with two guys called Playing Skills, where we won a Grammy they produced Riding Dirty with Crazy Bone and Chameleonaire. And now they're big in the Latin space, so we created CTM Latin through Concord CTM. So at the end of the day, where we sign young rising producers, because I learned about publishing, how important it is, and ownership is that, as far as that type of stuff. So I learned as I went.
What was the first LLC you formed?
My first LLC that I created was A to Z Entertainment LLC, because when I worked with Bone, and I'm still working with them 25 years later, only group that recorded with Biggie, Pac, Easy, and Big Pun, was I did everything for them. Like when Easy died, they didn't really know anybody. So I would do everything for them. So I was like, man, I'm A to Z. So I said, I'm gonna create A to Z Entertainment LLC.
Okay. And was that an artist management company, or?
That was everything from A to Z.
Okay.
That was management, production company, where I was a production company as well. And meaning that I had an artist signed to me. Man, who had a big record with Buzzin', with 50 Cent, was signed to my A to Z company. Ayaz was with me and Sean Kingston, Time is Money. Nipsey was part of A to Z. So at the end of the day, it's a production company, management company, and did it all from A to Z.
So when you start and you go, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm getting a steady check, you got these record label jobs, which I'm sure are paying good, and you got benefits, you got the whole thing. So I'm gonna go out and kind of do my own thing, which is risky. Did you use your own money to finance this? How did you start the business? Give me the nuts and bolts of it.
For the young people out there, there's LLCs, there's Inc., corporations.
Sure.
Look, coming up, I was just getting money wherever I could and just learning. Yeah. But when I started working a record label, yes, I was getting a steady check. Yes, I was getting health insurance. Yes, I had an expense account. Yes, there was a 401k. But I really didn't like internally what was going on in the labels, so I left and risked everything to go now on the opposite side and fight the label.
Now, how old
and
were
become
you
a
at the
manager.
time?
In the 20s,
Okay.
After I left Relativity Sony. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna fight for the artist. And I lost all that. And I've been independent ever since. And not many people could do that. They'd probably go crazy or kill themselves. And there's a lot of people, these labels, that they need that security. I believed in myself. So I said, I'm just gonna use that to fight for the artist. And it's funny because right now there's so many artists that are addicted to drugs and mental health issues and having a treatment center. A lot of Afro-Americans and Latinos don't come to treatment. Why? Because they have no health insurance or they can't afford it. So I'm trying to—
And there's stigma associated with it.
I'm trying to go to record labels now and say, hey, well, you have all these things. Why don't we do that for the artist? Because you're making money off the artist, and without the artist, you're not making no money. So why are a lot of our artists dying broke? Why are our artists dying from overdose or mental health issues or so on and so forth? So I'm trying to go around and do that. And there's a Latin friend of mine, he's Latin, but he's my brother, James Cruz, and he's going to represent the Latin side. And I'm going to try to get an Afro-American that we're going to fight these labels to give health insurance to these artists, that these artists, need health insurance just like you have health insurance.
It's crazy. When did you start looking at businesses outside of music? You start, right, in any business, right? You start with what you know. This is my world. I've got experience in it. I know artists. This is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. Okay, management company makes sense. Okay, but then treatment facility over here, or kind of some of the other businesses you're involved in.
To be honest with you, I didn't know nothing about nothing.
No?
I'm just a young kid that was told from my dad, if you want to get the BMX bicycle or the dirt bike or the car, you got to work for it. And
kicks, man, that was my thing.
yeah,
you want kicks?
Too.
I'll give you $40.
Shell toes, man.
You want Jordans? You got to pay the difference.
I wanted them shell toes or them Puma Clydes. So I had to go work.
Yep.
So I dropped out of school. I used to drink a Mountain Dew or have a Snickers bar or a Sunkist, and the sugar rush gave me so much that I couldn't sit in school. So I didn't know nothing, but I knew how to work hard. And I learned a lot, and I learned about how to be an entrepreneur by selling hot dogs at a hot dog stand or, bussing tables, waiting tables to own the restaurant. So I just knew that diversifying in different businesses is something that I wanted to do. And I feel like everything's in God's hands. So when I got in the music business, all I knew was tunnel vision of the music. Mm-hmm. But that was a gift and a curse because I had no balance. I cheated myself out having a family and having children. I saw the world many a times, which I'm blessed. I lived in studios. I got to do cool stuff, but it's smoke and mirrors and I have no balance. Thank God I started diversifying by, a cannabis deal came to me on a marketing side of things, and it was a store in Maywood, which is now called Cookies Maywood, where my now partners needed a brand, and I brought Berna, who owns Cookies, in there, and we opened up the first cookie store and probably made the biggest cannabis deal in history and changed the narrative of it.
Well, pause on that. People don't know what Cookies are, right? Cookies is a weed franchise, right?
Cookies
Are they
is
the
a weed
biggest?
franchise now from my guy Berna, who's right there, who's throughout this place. And
Great-
the CD's
great
right
artist.
there. Great artist. I've helped him with his music, and I connected the dots because I'm a dot connector. I'm the plug. I'm the middleman. And I connected the dots, and now Cookies Maywood comes. And then so many other things come from that place. And then we open Cookies Woodland Hills. And then we open up Lemonade Van Nuys by Weed Working. And then we open up Cookies Commerce City, Colorado. And then we're opening Cookies Puerto Rico and something in Massachusetts. So it just started evolving, and then opening the Heavily Center using cannabis when 10 years ago I used to go to a place called the Phoenix House for juveniles that were fighting addiction from juvenile hall. And me and Sean would go there and give out white tees and socks and underwear and bring pizzas and bring rappers to speak.
Cool.
And then who knew, fast forward, that I would open up a treatment center with a studio in there called Sober Studios and have guest speakers come. We've had some great speakers come speak at Cali Clean meetings, from Black Child to Troy Ave to Mike Geronimo to, so many different executives came and spoke, because a lot of people in the music business went through addiction. Mike Geronimo spoke, like I said, Black Child, from Murder Inc., Troy Ave. So many people came through and just spoke there. So I didn't know. It's about evolving. It's about taking chances and risks. It's about not being stuck in your ways and stubborn and growing. A lot of people don't want to grow, man.
I was just, if you ain't growing, you're dying, right? I love that line. But I was just going to ask you about taking risks too in business and how important that is for you. You're telling your story, and it's like, yeah, I got, approached with this, and I kind of went down that road, and I was in cannabis, and then I kind of ended up in treatment facilities, and it just sounds like, bump, this is kind of easy. It just kind of happens.
Nothing's easy.
Nothing's easy, of course, but you took some real risks. I mean, the one that jumps out at me, well, first of all, Nipsey. First of all, I read that you said no one wanted Nipsey.
No.
They thought Nipsey was whack.
Yeah.
And you took a chance on him when it didn't seem like there was a huge demand for that guy at the time.
Not everything I got involved with was successful. You win some, you lose some.
Of course.
With Nipsey, no one believed in that except the people that come from his neighborhood, his family, me and Sean and Big U. Every label said that he was whack, the music sucked, he looks like Snoop Dogg, he's a Rolling 60 Crip, Big U's involved, this, that, and a third, and I believed in it. And when I believe in something, you can't tell me nothing. It just took so long for people to understand and get on the bandwagon. And that happens a lot. Look at Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber, no one believed in that. And then Usher and L.A. Reid took a chance, but they went to every label and they said no. I sat in a meeting with Nipsey and Scooter Braun and Justin Bieber at Epic Records, and they were just coming out of the meeting saying they passed here, in Bieber's early stages and Nipsey's early stages. So you got to just believe in stuff, go with your gut, and then the followers will jump on the bandwagon. Not everybody's going to believe. I get 9 no's to 1 yes, and people don't believe in my vision, and they jump on after, so it's okay.
Scott Storch is another great one. I love Scott Storch, and if younger people don't know who Scott Storch is, just Google or go on YouTube and just hit Scott Storch piano and watch him play the hits he's got.
Well, let me tell you about that. I did a podcast 8 years ago called Live with Steve Lobel.
Okay.
I was very ahead of my time, just like I've been on, Road to Stardom, Missy Elliott's TV show, and Millionaire Matchmaker, and a lot of reality shows, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm ahead of my time. Even with the Heavenly Center, I think we're a little bit ahead of our time with the cannabis and treatment, but...
Because it's still kind of a faux pas.
Yeah. And I did the podcast, and I've interviewed everybody from Afrojack to J. Cole, to Be Real, to DJ Mustard, right? And I've done about 100 episodes. And I thought I was Jimmy Kimmel. I thought I was Johnny Carson's. I interviewed them. So I went to interview Scott Storch, not really knowing his whole story. I never ran into Scott Storch in my music career.
Now, what era of Scott Storch is this? Did he piss through the money yet?
He's gone. He's done. He's been gone for 8 years, 9 years.
Explain who Scott Storch is and what happened.
Scott Storch is a legendary producer that has worked with everybody from Beyonce to 50 Cent to Fat Joe, and made a lot of hit records. You know, a lot of hit records, right?
And a lot of money. I remember the Scott Storch Cribs episode.
And I never knew Scott, and me being in the game, and him being in the game, and us being white Jewish guys, never crossed paths. Yep. And I went to interview him after he lost $100 million, sniffing cocaine. Matter of fact, the new Drink Champs is out right now. I'm in with Scott Storch. I'm in it. So he lost $100 million, got clean using cannabis. I'll shout out his baby mother, Flo. She helped out a lot. I met him by going to interview him. And did I come across him? I might have came across him twice in my life, but he was on drugs. And I interviewed him, and when I interviewed him, he said, "Would you like to manage me?"
And this just went from a podcast interview, you're interviewing him, to...
Yeah, and I have a lot of plaques, so I wanted all my plaques signed. So I had a Chameleonaire plaque, and I realized that Scott produced a record on that album. So I brought the plaque to sign, I interviewed him. When I was done with the interview, he's like, "Do you want to manage me?" And you have Dr. Dre's number. I had Dre's number, but I didn't give it to him. First thing I did was I called his ex-manager and said, "Hey, D, Scott asked me to manage him." He said, "Yo, do what you think is best," and hung up. Didn't want to get into an elaboration, right?
But that's not a good sign.
Not a good sign, but I said, "Fuck it," right? And Scott had, at that time, been gone for 9 years. Lost it all. Met the girl, Flo, and she started helping him and brought him back to LA. So I called the publisher that I'm partners with and said, "Hey, I'm gonna manage Scott Storch." And they're like, "Interesting." So I told Scott the next day, I'll start managing you. First year was really hard. Second year was even harder.
Was it tough to get him work because of the reputation?
It was so hard to get him work. Everybody was telling me no. He f***ed us over. Yeah. He took us money. He never showed up to the studio. He's washed up. He doesn't have it no more. Again, it brought back to me like when I was younger, why am I hanging out with blacks? Why do I think I'm black? Why do I dress hip hop? Why do I talk like this? Then it evolved to Nipsey. He's nobody. He's not hot. He's not this. And I like challenges. So I said, I'll start managing you. Again, the first 2 years were really rough. First year was rough. Second year was even rougher. Scott's stubborn. He's stuck in his ways. Like, I need to get in with this one and that one. I need X amount of money. And I said, "Bro, it's not going to happen. If you trust me, we're going to rock and roll." And he trusted me. And I started putting him with artists that were new artists, but signed to labels, just start and go. So A Boogie, Roddy Ricch, P&B Rocks. Russ never worked with nobody as a producer and got him in with Scott Storch. We did 2, gold and platinum records. Putting him with all these new artists that were hot, but they were coming up. He had no idea who they were, but they were still signed to a label.
Well, hold on, just pause on this because we touched on this before, right? When I was doing my homework, I do a ton of prep for this stuff, right? And I'm reading about your relationship with Scott Storch, and I've always been a Scott Storch fan. I would love to interview him. Somehow he was in the Roots. Yeah. I need to know that story, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? But I knew your association with Scott, and I knew he went away. I knew that whole thing. And then I remember I was thinking about it, and I listen to hip hop a lot, and I go, I remember years ago, I just all of a sudden heard like, this is a Scott Storch beat at the beginning of this song. And I was like, what the f is this? And it was Trippie Redd's Take a Walk. And I was like, this motherfucker is back.
So let me break it down to you. He never put an intro on his songs.
Yeah.
So I told him we're going to put intros on the songs.
So they know
So
it's
we
you.
did the Game Jeremiah record, All Eyes, and the Trippie Redd record, and all the records we were putting Scott Storch in the beginning because that's reinventing him.
Yeah,
because
I didn't know he was back.
People don't know who he is, or someone like you don't know he's back, or the younger artists didn't even know. I was just leveraging stuff and like, hey man, come over to the studio, you get free studio time, we got drinks and weed and food, and half the time they didn't even know who Scott was. And then I paired him up with like, Metro Boomin or Illa the Producer or Abaddon or Murder Beats and things like that. So then we got so many different placements from new artists like the Trippies. Even Scott did the 6ix9ine stuff before he snitched and all that stuff. So Scott was working with all these new artists that people were like, yo, who did the beat? And it brought a lot of work. And the Post Malones, like I said, the Roddy Ricch Down Belows, the Trippies, the Russes, the 8 Boogies, the P&B Rocks. There's so many. You know, I forget of all the new relevant stuff. Because he wanted to go back in with Beyonce and Jay-Z, and I'm like, you've been there, done that. And even put him in with Nipsey. Chloe and Halle, we were nominated for Grammy last year. Now we have the Chloe new record out. So there was just so many new things, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of new artist names that we did stuff with. But then I was like, everybody's a producer now. Yeah. So we need to diversify, Scott. So I told him, let's sign young writers and producers. Let's come out with your own speaker. So we have your own KRK Scott Storch speaker coming out. Let's do a Scott Storch masterclass, which is out. Let's do a deal with Akai, where Scott comes up with the MPCs, and we'll put a keyboard, and we got an MPC keyboard out right now with Akai. Yeah. Then we did a documentary with Vivo. We're working on his life story. We did merchandise. We did Cannabis. Where he was a drug addict, and now he owns a treatment center. Like that's a genius idea. So I was just doing things that he's never done before. The sunglasses he did. Just doing things that, you know, and again, he's just stuck in his ways, very stubborn. You know, doing the right interviews, just getting him irrelevant, putting him out on the road with a DJ where the DJ's playing his music and he's playing the keys to it. And we did a lot of corporate events, and we did some stuff with Jamie Foxx and Eve and Snoop Dogg and DJ Scribble. So people were like, damn, this was genius. We did All-Star Weekend in Chicago a few years ago. So I was just diversifying his portfolio where he just knew just to make beats. And we're bros. And, you know, a lot of producers, I won't say their names, that are big, that are not relevant, called me and said, man, could you do the same thing you did with Scott with me? I said, I love you, I can't. It was so hard to do it with Scott. You know, that was the grace of God helping me and not giving up, but it wasn't easy, man, because this man's used to getting 150,000 a beat, where now you get 20,000 a beat. This man's used to working with all these new artists, these A-list artists, and I'm bringing him all these new artists that are becoming A-list. Heard of, yeah. And he listened and he followed me and he salutes me and he gives me my flowers. He says in a lot of interviews that Steve pushed me and I trusted him.
You know what, that really speaks to how talent transcends everything. So even though these young artists didn't know who he was necessarily, didn't know his biography and his catalog of work, when I'm guessing, I've never met Scott, but when you see Scott at the keys and you're an artist, you almost immediately know this guy's got it.
He was just training himself to learn the new sonics and the sounds, right?
Because his style did change. He's not the same guy.
He's a musical genius, but I had to pair him up with other people to do the drums. A lot of time, the artists that did come, they're used to getting packs or beats sent to them. So how I manipulated or diversified it to get them in the studio to work with Scott, and then they see him making it in front of them, they're like, whoa, we never saw this before, because they're just getting beats sent to them. Or you have young artists that come and don't appreciate what he's doing. Or just say, hey, just throw up the record and let me rap. So many different stories that I watched and seen throughout bringing him back.
How do you define success at this point in your life?
It's another great question. You know, a lot of people, you can look at success different things, right? Success could be to someone, I got my first platinum record, my first gold record, my first placement as a producer, my first record on the radio. Person who's not in the music business, I got my first car. I leased my first car with my great credit. I got my first credit card. I bought my first house. I leased my first house. I met this great girl and got married. I had my own child. Success comes in different things. To me, I think that I touched a lot of success, and maybe the last piece of success to me is maybe having a family or having a child, or I don't know, because I've seen the world, and that's successful where I'm from, because I would have never seen it. My dad has never seen it. My mom, rest in peace, never saw it. They might have saw 2, 3 states, so success comes in different shapes, sizes. To me, it's different, and success to me is opening different things and doing things that are different. But I think the level of success to me now is happiness and balance.
Bro, that's good words to kind of end on. This was a pleasure, bro. I appreciate you just inviting me in your world for an hour. It was just a great time.
My house is your house, and I think we covered a lot of great things. Make sure you get that takeout, that fire strain. So much more to come from that.
What else should we check out that you're doing? You got
just
university.
follow me on Instagram. I'm be 57, man, and I'm like a whore on Instagram, right? A lot of people reach out to me and say, man, you motivate me, or I love seeing your stories. Friends of mine's wives follow me and they're like, yo, you see what Steve's doing? Like I keep everybody going. But check out the masterclass. Okay. I mean, I sat down for hours and gave up a lot of game with a company called All Art out of Spain. If you're in California, you're in Massachusetts, you're in Colorado, Puerto Rico, pop up in dispensaries. But if you're definitely from out of town or out of state or out of the country and you pop up in California, you must come to Lemonade Van Nuys by Weed Working and see the museum and the dispensary and the studio. You'll never know who you're gonna run into. Anybody out there that's fighting addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, opioid addiction, mental health, reach out to us at the Heavily Center in Studio City. Just stay tuned, man, because sky's the limit, man. I'm not going to stop till the wheels fall off, and I'm going to go till the end, and always remember this: without health, we're nothing, and God is great.
It's a pleasure, brother.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., interviews with the biggest entrepreneurs in the world drop. And we got people from all walks of life. We got Steve. I was talking NFTs with Rich the Kid. We had Paris Hilton, who blew me away at how smart she was, man, talking about crypto and Web3. So just every week, new entrepreneurs to give you some inspiration about how to start and grow your business. So check it out. Make sure you subscribe and like it. Thanks, guys.